Hey guys, this is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Welcome back home, family. To those of you that happen to be here for the very first time, I definitely hope that you hear something on today that will persuade you to subscribe. Now, everyone, please do me a big favor as I am trying to get to 2,000 subscribers, trying to get up in the algorithm. If you can please hit the like button. It just takes a few seconds. Comment down below, engage, continue to drop some sources, some knowledge. Definitely appreciate those of you that have been confirming what it is that I have been saying, that's been adding on and opening up my understanding to some things. It is amazing to see. With that being said, I am going to jump straight into today's video to begin to talk about what I have found about the holidays on Ancestry.com, and I am going to link it out together with what I have been talking about with Christopher Karambo, the Akan, the Yoruba, the Igbos, the Sephardic Jews in Europe, to be specific, and the Quakers and the Black Church. I'm about to link it all in. The reclassification of our people, the reclassification of our people from mulatto to black, from mulatto to native, from native to black, from native to mulatto, from mulatto to white. Okay, can we talk about the fact that the royals of Britain and England and of Spain and of Portugal and of France and of the Netherlands for some years were Israelites and Moors? These are facts that cannot be denied. Wherever you saw a hub of Jews and a hub of Arab Moors, that's where you saw a lot of culture begin to spring up, whether it's mathematics, astrology, astronomy. I mean, these are historical facts. So when we begin to see Europeans in history, this does not always mean a white or Caucasian people based off of their DNA. We have to realize that there are Black Europeans and that they begin to vary in shades just like every other Black person. And also the fact that they went into Europe looking one way, some of them have kept their melanin and other of them have mixed and mingled, and the water, the sea line becomes watered down or whitewashed, as we begin to see in history. And then based on who these people begin to co-marry with begins to determine how the bloodline continues on surface. So I signed up for Ancestry.com, and I've been coming up with so much information that a DNA test will not reveal. And the reason I say that is because one of my second cousins, I believe she's my second cousin, one of my second cousins got a DNA test, and she knows for a fact that her father was full-blood Choctaw Native American, has the registry and everything. Her test came back with nothing, with no Native in her at all. Everything was West Africa. Everything was. So what I have been doing, and she as well, because she started this before me, is I have been going through some records, all the way from birth certificates to marriage records to a few slave schedules to boat schedules, naturalization and civilization paperwork, prison records, just census records, so many things with my family. So the last name Holliday clearly denotes holy day. And we could just end the video right there because that should tell you enough. When we begin to look at the last name Holiday and Holy Day, we know that this be biblical in origin. The Israelites kept holy days, so on and so forth. When I began to look into my father, Robert Ramonte Holliday, his father, Robert Earl, his father, Robert L. My great-grandfather, Robert Holliday, Grandpa, as everyone affectionately called him, was raised by his blood aunt and his blood uncle because, unfortunately, his parents died when he was a little boy. He was raised with his cousins as their sibling, and he actually named his son, my great-uncle Cliff, after one of his cousins. The aunt and uncle that raised my grandfather was Clara Shepherd and William Holliday. William Holliday had a mother by the name of Annie Holliday, Elizabeth Ann Holliday, and they have a picture of her. And this would be my third great-grandmother. And upon looking at the picture, she looks like a white woman. They classified her as mulatto at first, and then as I continued to dig, classified her as black. Annie had a husband by the name of Moses Holliday. Annie had a son by the name, her father was named Thomas Holliday. And this is the part, because I was like, okay, they classify her as mulatto. She could clearly pass as white. She was a free farmer who could pass as white, classified as mulatto, then reclassified as Negro. I want you guys to hold on to that because we have seen this happen in history before. Always keep in mind when I'm talking to you about these things, just to keep it visual for you, about the movie The Imitation of Life, where a black woman began to pass for white. Remember these things, okay? What began to blow my mind about Annie's father is his name is Thomas Holliday. And Thomas Holliday was classified as a black man, a slave on one thing, but a free farmer on everything else. And when I began to dig into Thomas Holliday, he was classified a slave in England. And he was classified a slave to his father, John C. Holliday, and his mother, Elizabeth Holliday. It's just funny that he married somebody that had the same name as his mother. And if you guys are noticing, all of these are Hebrew names, because when you begin to look into the name Robert, the Hebrew equivalent would be Reuben. These are Northern Kingdom names. Okay, let's continue. So, Thomas Holliday was a slave to his parents, John and Elizabeth, who were registered as white, but he was registered as black. How does this begin to happen? If we begin to take a gander into the story of one of our presidents, Abraham Lincoln, his autobiography, as well as eyewitness accounts for gentlemen who worked side by side with him, began to describe him as a tall black fellow. He began to state that he was a Melungeon. His mother was Native American, and his father could have passed as white. His father was a Portuguese Sephardic Jew and Native American. He was an indentured servant to his own father. This is in his autobiography in the Library of Congress. Those pictures that we see of Abraham Lincoln was not of him. He was very tall, very frail, very thin. Wasn't the best to photograph. There are some pictures out there of him. Some restored pictures. And in his autobiography, he began to say that he feared going back home because he would be lynched like a slave. When Abraham Lincoln was in office, he did not make black people go through the back door of the White House. He welcomed them through the front door. Let's go even further into American history. George Washington. There's an episode of y'all girl Oprah when his black side of the family and his white side of the family began to meet each other. It's also an interesting fact that George Washington was indeed a Sephardic Jew. And on the back of the dollar bill, he wanted to have a picture of the Israelites being exited out by Moses. Visit the Library of Congress to begin to find these things out. So we begin to even see that in the Old Testament, that indentured servitude once again was a Hebraic practice. And there were times when families would indenture their own children to themselves and keep the money versus selling them on the market. And so when I continued to do some digging, it made sense to me, because I found that John Holliday, who was classified as white, was on the Quakers list. And I said, oh, he was a hidden Jew, a hidden Moor, who forged his paperwork to be a white man, to begin to come over into the Americas, where Sephardic Jews and Moors were fleeing religious persecution. And he made his way into Pennsylvania, then Virginia, North Carolina, Mississippi. William Holliday, who was John Holliday's father, he had some slaves as well, some indentured servants as well. And then when you go further up, there was a Thomas Holliday who began to fight in the War of 1812. And then Samuel Holliday, he was actually one of the sons of the American Revolution, on the Quakers list also. We began to do some deep digging into our history as Black people, so-called Black people in America. We began to find that there was a mixing and a mingling of many Hebraic people to make who we are on today. Now, when we began to look at who the Quakers are, the Quakers have already been proven to be Sephardic Jews that was spread in the diaspora. They built their doctrine off of the epistles of Peter, who wrote his letters to the pilgrims in the diaspora. Who was in the diaspora at the time of the apostles? The Sephardic Jews. How can we begin to prove this? Because they made a pilgrimage back to Jerusalem in Acts 2. They would make pilgrimages back for the 3 major feast days, and I've stated this before. We began to look at the Quakers. They were protesting against the Church of England that had become a Roman providence. They were protesting against being persecuted religiously. And we began to even get down into the etymology of some of these Quaker movements that broke off of them. The Church of the Nazarene was one of them. Have I not stated that the Nazarene is one of the Israelite sects that we see in the Bible? Samson, Yeshua Bar Yosef, John the Baptist, Yochanan the Baptist. And guess what, y'all? Just to prove this, because was not John the Baptist a Levite? And he baptized Yeshua Bar Yosef and inducted him into the Melchizedekian priesthood while he was in Nazareth. I want to begin to tell you that one of the offshoots of the Quaker movement is the Baptist Church. It's the Black church movement, the evangelical church, the holiness movement, to be born again, part of the Puritans. History has not been hidden. It's just been in books and in the Bible and in history this entire time. So when I began to say that I knew without a shadow of a doubt, before I even found these Quaker lists, right before I even found all of these things attached to my last name, just by opening up the Bible and lining up the oral history of the West African tribes, the scattering of these nations, reading extra biblical texts, and everything, I said, oh, those of us in the America and the diaspora, and some of these Native American tribes are the people that this book is talking about. Let me go see what these tribes say about this book. Oh, this is what they say. So, to my Holliday family, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you decide to watch, know that your roots are Quakers from England who were expelled due to religious persecution. They became Moranos to enter into the New World, to become new Christians, to hide their identity. And the Holliday became back like this because they married into the Barnett family, who were Choctaw Native American at about 85%, and a couple of African slaves who actually, it said that they were slaves and not indentured servants who ended up being free when they came to the Americas. Line up on line, precept on precept, here a little, there a little, and this is my Sephardic Jew roots. This is Jacolia of Jacolia Gems. Food for thought.